So, meditation. Meditation is a piece that, most people, when they first hear the word, they go, I can't meditate, right? And I'm Cherie, Doyen, and I teach mindfulness. I teach meditation. I teach us how to come back to that place of oneness, integrity. I love Gandhi. Gandhi says happiness is when what we think, what we say, and what we do are in alignment, right? So that's the goal of all of it. Meditation is not something we do, it's something we undo, right? So the state access during meditation is our most natural state. That's the state that we come to right before sleep. It's the state when your mind is out of the way and you are just being, right? They say that that before and after death, right? They've done this study that we weigh 21 grams after we die. So that's how much our spirit weighs. That's how much our natural space is. 21 grams. Interesting, right? We don't have to be taught. Instead, it's about unlearning. So yeah, it's not that you have to be taught. Now look, this is my grandbaby, and this is how he is, right? And my other grandbaby does it too. So it's that natural way of centering. Every one of us has come to this planet knowing how to do that. It's often about coming back to that place when we were children and seeing how that came together for us in a very natural way, right? Like for myself as a child, I used to rock. And I'd count and tap my foot. So we all have a way that was very natural for us in the first place. You know, some people get there through dancing. Like when you think about the indigenous peoples, they're not sitting in their space, right? They're dancing in that ecstatic way, that space where all that they're thinking about is their next movement, right? Or not even thinking about that. Like they're just letting their body be succumbed, right? Some get there through music and the words flow through them, right? I was at this concert last night where this man said, I just wake up with words in my head and I have to make a song, right? That's God speaking to you. That's coming into that space of integrity and in complete flow with nature, right? That it's just coming through you, right? And artists speak about the brush moving their hand, right? It's not about doing, guys. It's about undoing. When you feel like you're having to sit down and meditate or you're having to do something, just realize that everything you do in your lifetime can be viewed as a meditation, right? When you think about the Buddhist, right? They'll have a whole piece around doing the dishes, weeding the garden, right? Because if you go into a space like that and just let yourself be, with dropping an intention in prior to, right? That's when the God starts talking. We've got Qigong, we've got Tai Chi, martial arts, yoga. That's all about the intention, right? And you can't do those things if you're not in integrity, right? You can't stand on one foot for 20 minutes, right? If you're not in balance. You can't do it. I remember when I was younger and just a mess, right? I could not do that without, I couldn't do it, right? Now, Buddha, I know we've talked Jesus a lot in this room. Buddha was the master of contemplation, right? So that's a type of meditation that we talk about a lot in this room. Does everybody know Buddha's story? I love Buddha's story because Buddha was born a prince. So he was born to this kingdom. Now you'll find similarities between the Jesus story and the Buddha story, right? So he was born a prince to this very prosperous king. And after he was born, the oracles came in, 3, much like Jesus. The oracles came in. And they declared that either Buddha was going to be the greatest king that the kingdom has ever known, or he was going to be the greatest spiritual master that the world had seen to date. Depending, now I love this, right? Depending on what he was exposed to, right? So if he never saw pain, his compassion, his space for spirituality wouldn't be activated, right? So the king bends over backwards. He prepares the kingdom to only receive beauty, right? So people got old, boom, they were out. People got sick, boom, they were out. A flower started to die, boom, it was out, right? Like Buddha never saw discomfort, pain, or ugliness, right? He was given the most beautiful woman. He was given, just everything. Until one day, somebody left the gate open and he wandered out. And he saw an old man and all wrinkled, and he was horrified, absolutely horrified. He was just like, oh my God, how could this possibly happen, right? And then he continues on and he sees a sick person. And again, I think the guy had like leprosy or something, so fingers gone, and absolutely horrified until, that became his passion, is suffering. Why does it happen, right? Buddha's whole journey and all of his teachings were about contemplating suffering and why we have it, right? So he became Buddha once he was exposed. That's kind of cool with our children when you think people are struggling to find their purpose, right? Well, it depends on what we're exposed to. Maybe we've never been exposed to what our real purpose is on the planet, right? So, when we talk about contemplative meditation, that's often what we work with in here in this room. Contemplating meditation is about formulating a question in such a way, right, that we can get an outcome. Now, we talked last week about how to formulate our questions, right, and how to formulate our prayer. And that's very much, if you can't give it to Google, you're not ready to give it to the universe, right? So you want it as concise and simplified as absolutely possible. Say, what is my purpose? Show me how to get in alignment with my purpose, right? And just very concise, succinct questions, right? The universe does not understand contractions. It does not understand should, woulds, and coulds, won'ts, don'ts. No, right? So we want to keep our thoughts and our questions in a forward-moving energy, right? Yes or no questions aren't really the best, right? And one way I really formulate how I've set up, often people will be like, well, how do I know if God's talking and I'm not just making it up, right? So, just like we set up structures around everything, we can also set up structures around that. So in my mind, what I have formulated or built is that if I get to the end of the question and there's a pause, my brain's playing, right? Normally, when God's speaking to me, I don't get the question all the way done, right? Say, I'll be like, and I'm in alignment, like I'll get a boom. You need to move in this direction or whatever, right? So that's kind of how I have it set up. You guys can all like set that up in a way that you're not going to have doubt, because that's the piece, right? We're, in setting up this structure, we're trying to eliminate our doubt around what we're hearing, right? We like to explain away God talking to us, which is a really sad thing, right? So this is a space that is to be utilized. If you only want to relax, that's what you're going to get out of it, right? If you want answers to questions, this is the space to find it, right? If you want direction in your life, this is the space to find it. This is where God talks to us. Now, to really utilize this contemplation space, we have to be introduced to the observer. And the observer is that part of us that's always watching, that part of us that is just only seeing truth. There's not emotion there. There's not fear there, right? But they're just watching and observing. From your perspective, from you to be able to say, hey, this is what is true right now, right? And recapitulation is another big piece of the contemplation. Recapitulation is the art of being able to watch your circumstance in the search for truth, right? So in recapitulation, we move into that place of the observer. I like to envision an actual physical stepping back, right? You're stepping back out of the emotion, almost in the space that you would watch a movie. Because when you're watching a movie, you can be, be compassionate for everyone in the scenario. You have insight as to everyone in the scenario, right? As to their motives, as to where they're standing, where their truths are. So in recapitulation, it's almost as though you have a movie screen out in front of you, and we take a circumstance. Say we've got a circumstance that made us uncomfortable. We've got a circumstance that maybe with a partner where communication is getting jabberwonky, right? That's where you play with this, right? You put that up on your screen and you watch. I like to envision myself almost like a permeable gas, right? I can roam in and out of the situation, see the people, feel them, feel where they're really coming from. Because most often we have an idea that everybody's out to get us, and in reality they haven't even thought about us, right? They're in their own game, right? So, and that's a very narcissistic place to be, to think everybody's like out to get us, because why would they, right? So, recapitulation was the biggest healing tool I had, because I think when we come from dysfunction, we don't know it's dysfunction. I mean, we may have a picture like years out that, oh, this is dysfunctional, right? But we don't know how. We don't know how we're showing up is affecting the situation, right? So all we can change is change us. So recapitulation is really watching how you're showing up in the world and how you can tweak that to shift this outcome, right? Everything on this planet is here to play with us and reflect back to you how you're showing up, right? So this is more of a treasure hunt than something to do. This isn't work. This is the opposite of work, guys. This is absolutely the opposite of work. It's real important to create your space. Very similar to the ideas around sleep or lack thereof, laying energy down in a specific spot over and over again. Let your brain understand this is what I'm going to do when I walk down this hallway into this room. The same with meditation. So create your space. Carve out a corner in your house, a room in your house where no one else is allowed, right? So that you can start becoming aware of what you feel like, independent of your family, independent of your friends, independent of the others that live in your house. Because especially as women, I think so often we move from our parents' house to a significant other's house. We're always living with someone. We're always living with someone, and we never know what we feel like without the energy of another, right? So it's really powerful to start creating your space, bring in your bubbles, whatever makes you smile. Because if it's making you smile, that's what Spirit wants you to have around you, right? It's not about, oh, this is spiritual, oh, this is it. No. If you love rocks, have lots of rocks around. If you love whatever you love, bring it around you so that you're in that space, very comfortable, and your brain can start predicting ahead of time where you're going, what is expected, and it starts happening quicker and quicker, right? Now, here's a big piece. I learned this about 5 years ago. Casting your sacred circle. Most people can see it as a ring of fire. So, that being said, try to see the circle go up because it feels more real if we have some sort of solidity that it's actually there, right? And if you ask to see it, you'll be shown it. Now, inside of the safety of the circle, right, you're free to explore what it feels like to just be you. Because what we do, as we cast that circle, we're going to ask all that is not here to serve your highest and best to leave the circle, right? So that you can know and you can feel that. What does it feel like to be me? Independent of the whispers, independent of spirits, independent of other energies, independent of other people, because often we have, say our dad standing right here, energetically in our circle, right? Or we have mom standing right there, or we have, husbands standing here, right? And they're, even in that space, they're parroting to us, right? And then, once we can understand what that feels like, what it feels like to be you, we call in the energies that can guide and assist us in our search. That's calling in your guides, your spirit animals, any energies, right? The masters, any energies that are going to join with you to guide you through this process, right? I love animals, right? So the spirit animals are around a lot. And here's our big questions as we're on this planet, right? Who am I? What do I want? And what is my purpose? That's our end-all questions, right? If we have the answer to those questions, we're in alignment with happiness, right? Because what we think, what we say, and what we do are going to be all one, right? So here's the thing, guys. If you don't know, how can we expect anyone else to know, right? If we're getting upset with others around us, it's because we don't have clarity personally as to what's acceptable to us, right? As to who we are, why we're here, right? And what's acceptable to us, what we like, right? I think most of us could create lists and lists and lists about the things that we don't like, right? Things that people do that we don't like. Things that foods that we don't like, just we can do that, right? And then we go into the like column and we've got one or two things. Because we don't ever spend that much energy around that space, right? Understanding what we want, what we like, right? So, the universe loves for you to play. If you start asking questions, without doubt that you're going to get the answer, because that's a big piece, right? You start asking questions, you are going to start getting answers, right? You start asking for signs, you're going to start getting signs, right? Because everything and everyone is here to play with you. Just think about that. Right now, there's a couple NASA scientists that are saying we're playing a big video game, a big elaborate video game, and we just forgot. We forgot, and we're caught in the minutia. So if you really think about that, and you think about the energies of what shows up around you, the peoples that show up around you, the animals that show up around you, and you start thinking, all right, everything around me is a sign. If I choose to listen and I choose to think about it, right? Like I love giraffe, right? Giraffe would be like, right? That extension, that elevation, being able to see over the top of things. Then you've got the spots, so that would be integration of dark and light, right? Even their tongue is dark, right? So it's complete integration of our dark side, right? I love that. Archetypes are really powerful. This was another big piece that I utilized with, alongside my meditations. Was pulling myself into a light meditation and really calling in the archetypes, the energies of those archetypes that I wanted to possess. There's a Buddhist tradition. Deepak used to talk about, when he was a child, his mother used to have him every morning pick out a god or goddess that he wanted to possess their energies or their essence, right? And every morning, that was the morning ritual. It was to ask to be infused with that essence, right? So I started playing with that across the board with my animals and with, the gods that I was attracted to. Saraswati, which is the goddess of wisdom, right? I can't remember the one of the forest. I can't remember her name right now. Lakshmi, right? The goddess of abundance. Persephone. Persephone was huge for me in the beginning, right? I didn't even know the gods and goddesses, and I'm watching him talk about it, and I'm like, whatever, this sounds like the hokiest stuff I've ever seen, right? And then, boom, comes Persephone, and I was like, oh, I need to know about her. And I started doing research, and right, it's this beautiful goddess who was taken into the underworld and raped and pillaged, and what did she do? She made it beautiful down there, right? So that was very close to my heart at that time, right? Anyway, also my panther, right? I'd always had this panther around me. So the panther in my mind was what always created movement, right? It always got me out of a jam. It always pushed me to take action, right? He'd stand behind me and roar at me, like move, right? So what I did was every day, now shower is a very special time for me. Shower is like meditation time for me. So in the shower every morning I'd be like, I want to be infused with the power of my Tigwa, right? I want to be filled with the wisdom of Saraswati. I want to embode the abundance of Lakshmi, right? Until one day they all jumped inside. That was the picture, right? One day it was just like boom, 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 right? And that was how I was being shown that it was integrating, right? It was becoming a part of me, right? Rather than having to call something from the outside, right? So that's how we can play with archetypes. Truly play with them, right? And also, we've talked a lot about morphic fields. Well, each one of these archetypes has a huge morphic field, right? We can look at like the elephant when we think about the matriarchal powers and energies of the elephant community and their communities, right? And their willingness to parent and, someone else's child, right? Adoption is in place in the elephant community, which is, such a powerful thought to me. Or we can, say, show me and fill me with the essence of community and relationship that the monkeys do very naturally, right? We can also use a mantra. So there's many ways, you guys, as you are seeing, right? There's no right or wrong way. A mantra is just a statement or a declaration that is repeated over and over again. So if you got thoughts that are bombarding, like throughout your meditation, you can have a phrase such as, I am that, God is here, whatever. However you want to create that, something very short and sweet that you can just have roaming through your head if thoughts are too much. Mudra are symbolic hand positions that most of the time are really connecting meridians, right? Meridian lines. I actually do mudras a lot, and they just show up for me. Like, to say what are they? I don't usually know or care. I just know that my hands will want to go into different positions sometimes, right? And you just have to allow that, allow that. That's something that you knew from another lifetime, right? Something that you knew already. Because that's part of the piece, right, guys, is we've been around so many lifetimes that much of what we're doing is remembering what we already know, right? We have to go back and remember what we already know. So the only instructions really I'm going to give you is to tilt your eyes slightly upward. Rest your tongue on the ridge behind your front teeth. That connects the front and back meridians. It's the only place in our body where there's just an open space, right? So as you can see, anyone can meditate. It's our very most natural space to be in. There's no wrong way. Every way is going to get you to where you need to be. So one day if you feel like dancing, dance. Don't sit there and say, oh, I didn't meditate today. Yes, you did, just differently. If one day you need to go for a walk and you drop that question in and you just be very mindful of each step you take, of what you see around you. Yes, that's a meditative space. I get a lot of downloads while I'm walking, right? Or afterwards, usually. If you need to just go sit by the river. Another piece, guys, a lot of, children meditate most often with their eyes open. Most often with their eyes open. Because it's the most natural way to be, right? So bringing that state of mind into our life is the purpose. We don't live with our eyes closed, sitting in a corner somewhere, right? So the more we can get some movement type things around us as well, right? Like the martial arts, yoga, as we talked before, Tai Chi, going for a walk, and all being in that space of this is what I'm doing. This is a spiritual time for me. I'm going to go for a walk right now, and I'm going to contemplate around such and such, right? That can be just as impactful as sitting alone in your living room, right? Now, I love Jesus said this. So this, again, is back to the many rounds of this game. And in the Book of Truths, he declared, the first thing that we must do is to assess which eon we're standing in. Okay? So that means which round of the game are we in? And what do we already know? How much have we already learned? What challenges have we already accomplished, right? So that we can bring that wisdom forward, right? Caught in the minutia, we're only dealing with what we know right now in our hard drive, right? So in your meditations, you can ask to be shown this mountain. Often people get shown this mountain. Colleen's seen the mountain, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Numerous people have seen the mountain, right? So when you are meditating, you can ask to be shown where you are. Usually that journey up, sometimes people are going around. I know for a while I was going all the way around the bottom, right? And I stayed going around that bottom for a really long time, right? Just like with any circumstance, we can skirt around the edges forever, or we can ask for the straightest line through. So, when we're shown where we are on this mountain, we can also, again, ask that question, what's the straightest line through this, right? So, the point is, just do it. Just do it. Take 20 minutes twice a day, whether it be going in your yard and sitting by yourself and watching the butterflies, going for a walk, taking a yoga class, sitting and meditating, however that looks for you, carve that time out for yourself. Because as we know, changing you changes everything. Right, guys?